The hoverbike's engine sputtered like a sick bird choking on smoke. Kale Doran, grease under his nails and the kind of patience only a lifetime of fixing other people's mistakes could teach, gave the side of the machine a sharp smack with his spanner. The coughing died down immediately, replaced by a low, healthy hum. The Verdant customer's skin shimmered from worried orange to a calm green, a subtle display of relief. "How?" the alien asked, his voice carrying that strange layered tone unique to his species. "Our diagnostics reported 17 system failures." Kale twirled the spanner between his fingers, a habit left over from his days working pit lanes back on Earth. "Your diagnostics overthink. 9 times out of 10, it's just a loose coupling. Vibrations make the sensors scream like it's the end of the world." He gestured at the wall behind him where an ancient poster of an Earth racing event, Daytona, faded but proud, hung crooked between mismatched wrenches. "Back home we used to say, if you can't fix it with duct tape, you're not using enough duct tape." The Verdant blinked, his skin flashing confused yellow. "But you didn't use any adhesives." "It's a metaphor," Kale said, already holding out a grease-stained palm. "That'll be 40 credits. When the customer left, Kale leaned over a combustion engine no one on this world would ever use again. Rebuilding it kept his hands busy and his mind away from darker places, like how he'd ended up 40 light-years from Earth, or how his best friend would still be alive if Kale had noticed one loose lug nut before a race. A faint scraping sound pulled him from his thoughts. Something was being dragged outside, metal on metal. Probably kids messing with junk again. But then he noticed a single droplet on the shop floor. Blue. Not paint. Not oil. Liquid. Still wet, catching the industrial lights. Another droplet followed, and another, trailing toward the alley. Kale grabbed a rag and followed. The drops grew thicker, spattering against rusted scraps until they led him behind a stack of broken chassis. There, wedged between corroded plating and discarded hover frames, he found her. A child. Skin pale light blue, glimmering faintly, as if dimmed by pain. Maybe 6 years old. Her right leg ended abruptly below the knee, bound in filthy cloth that was soaked through with fresh blood. A crude crutch, a rusted pipe wrapped in rags, lay broken at her side. "Damn," Kale muttered, dropping to his knees. Her eyes snapped open at his touch. Silver-flecked irises stared at him with raw terror. "Hey, hey," Kale said softly, his voice steady, the same one he'd once used to calm his sister's kids when storms rattled the windows back on Earth. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you. Name's Kale. I fix things." He pointed to the back door of his shop. "Got a med kit inside. Maybe even some juice boxes if you're into ancient Earth tech." The girl tried to push herself backward but gasped in pain as her legs shifted. Her hand clutched something beneath her torn cloak, a metallic glint catching Kale's eye. "All right," Kale said, raising both hands in surrender. "No sudden moves. But that leg of yours needs help. I could call a medical transport." Her head shook violently. "No doctors." Kale studied her small, delicate face. Even through the grime and tears, she carried that sharp symmetry the higher castes were bred for. Almost too perfect, too precise. "Okay," he said. "No doctors. But how about this, I'll carry you inside, patch you up myself. No questions, no authorities. Deal?" She hesitated, trembling. Then she gave the smallest nod. Kale scooped her up, startled by how light she was, her bones hollow like all Zephyrians. She pressed her face against his shoulder, shaking as he carried her inside. He set her gently on his workbench, clearing away carburetors and circuit boards with one sweep. "All right. This'll sting a bit. You know what else stings? Bees. But they make honey, so we forgive them." The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Almost." Kale cut away the old bandages and winced. The wound wasn't recent. Weeks old, clumsily treated, torn open again by too much walking. Not surgical, no, this was rough field work. Survival, not healing. "You've been walking on this," he muttered, spraying antiseptic foam as she bit her lip but refused to cry out. Brave or stupid? Probably both. He worked quickly, wrapping fresh bandages, hands steady despite the knot forming in his chest. Her cloak, though torn, was made of fabric that shimmered faintly, worth more than his entire shop. Her hands were soft, uncalloused, not a child's hands from the slums. She carried herself straight, proud even through the pain. When he secured the last bandage, he glanced at her makeshift crutch and shook his head. "That thing's garbage. No wonder you fell. Give me 20 minutes. I'll make you something better." She watched him silently as he welded aluminum pipes, wrapped them in foam padding from an old pilot seat, adjusted the height again and again until it was just right. When he handed it to her, she touched it as though it were spun from silver. "Thank you," she whispered. Cale nearly dropped his torch. Not gutter dialect. Not the clipped speech of the lower levels. This was pure High Zephyrian, the kind spoken in palaces. "You're welcome," he said carefully. "Got somewhere safe to go?" She nodded, testing the crutch as she limped toward the door. But before leaving, she turned back, silver eyes meeting his. A moment hung in the air. Then she was gone. Cale stood staring at the faint blue stains on his workbench. He'd seen wounded kids before, but not with clothes like that. Not with that accent. He checked his security feed, old, glitchy, but functional. The girl hadn't come from the street. She'd crawled out of a service hatch leading to forgotten tunnels. Rewinding further, he froze. There she was again. Watching his shop from the shadows. Not just once. 3 days ago. 2 weeks. A month. 3 months. Always watching. Sometimes failing with that broken crutch, dragging herself into hiding. 3 months of watching him. The next day, Cale left his door open, working near the window. And sure enough, in his peripheral vision, light blue skin behind the scrap heap. Pretending not to notice, he set a sandwich and juice box on a crate. 20 minutes later, they were gone. This became routine. Until finally, on the 4th day, he spoke loud enough for her to hear. "You know," he said while tightening a manifold, "this would be easier if you just came inside. Got chairs, even cushions." Silence. Then, slowly, she emerged. Moving carefully on the crutch he'd built. When she reached the doorway, she said in that same formal dialect, "I don't want to bother you." "Kid," Cale said, "I talk to myself half the day. Company would be an improvement. Besides, you've been watching me work for months. Might as well get a closer look." She hesitated, then stepped inside. The girl perched carefully on the stool Cale pulled out, her new crutch balanced against the workbench. Up close, her light blue skin shimmered faintly, almost like the surface of water beneath starlight. The torn cloak couldn't hide the cut of her clothes, precision stitching, expensive fabric ruined by dirt and blood. Cale leaned back against the bench, wiping his hands on a rag. "So, you got a name, or do I just keep calling you Shadow Kid?" Her gaze lingered on the floor. At last she said, "Nira." Not her real name, Cale could tell. Too short, too plain for her accent. But he didn't push. "All right, Nira. Why've you been spying on a washed-up mechanic?" She hesitated, hands twisting in her lap. "You fix things, but not like others. You don't replace. You change. Make them work differently. Better." Her hand gestured toward the shelf where old machines sat, patched and reimagined. "That heater, Korvac's design. But you added human parts. Stronger now." Cale raised an eyebrow. "You can tell that just by looking." Nira nodded. I understood machines before. She stopped abruptly, her hand unconsciously brushing the bandaged stump of her leg. But I can't anymore. Broken ones shouldn't touch tools of creation. Who the hell told you that garbage? Kale snapped before he could stop himself. She flinched. It's the law. The imperfect destroy. They cannot create. Kale sighed, crouching so they were eye level. Listen. You lost a leg. That doesn't make you broken. You want to know what broken is? Giving up. Accepting other people's lies about you. Everything that matters, he tapped gently against her temple, is still in here. Her eyes shimmered with something between confusion and hope. But Kale had already noticed more. Her posture, the formality in her words, the subtle way she carried herself as if the whole world were watching. And when he'd cleaned her cloak earlier, a medallion had fallen out, a crest he knew from news feeds. The royal seal of House Vera. He cleared his throat. Nira. What's your real name? She went very still. Does it matter? Not to me, Kale admitted. But someone's probably looking for you. Her laugh was bitter, too sharp for a child. No. Nobody looks for broken things. Before Kale could respond, the shop's proximity alarm chimed. He glanced at the monitors. 3 sleek hovercraft entered the district airspace. Not police. Not traders. Official vehicles, polished to a mirror shine. The kind that never came to the lower tier unless something serious was happening. Nira stiffened, eyes wide. I should go. Back door, Kale said quickly. 50 meters south, through the tunnels. But the shop's front door opened before she could move. A woman stepped inside, and the air itself seemed to pause. Her skin was a deeper blue than Nira's, her hair silver and flowing like liquid metal. She wore a black outfit so simple it was dangerous, wealth displayed through understatement. 2 guards flanked her but halted at a gesture. The woman's silver-flecked eyes landed on the girl instantly. Nira, she said softly. It's time to come home. The child's chin rose, even as tears streaked her face. I'm not your daughter anymore. You said so yourself. The dead have no children. Kale froze. Daughter. Queen Salandra of House Vera, he recognized her now. And this girl, Nira, was her blood. Salandra's voice never wavered, but Kale caught the fracture in her gaze. I came to bring you back. To lock me away again, Nira spat, clutching her crutch tighter. To pretend I don't exist until the ceremony is over. I'd rather stay here. With him. Salandra's gaze swept the shop, oil stains, scattered tools, the earth-racing poster on the wall. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes narrowed when they landed on Kale. This establishment, she said coolly. Has heat, Kale interrupted, stepping in front of Nira. And juice boxes. And I don't tell her she's broken. Salandra's attention snapped to him. You don't understand what you're interfering with. I know a kid who needs help when I see one, Kale said, his jaw tight. And I know what it feels like to lose part of yourself. But you can build something new out of what's left. Salandra's voice cut like a blade. Our law is clear. The imperfect cannot rule. In 2 weeks, the ceremony of inheritance will name another heir. My daughter will be cared for, but she can never be queen. That's insane. That is tradition. Her voice cracked ever so slightly. She steadied it quickly. Nira. Please. Come home. Nira's knuckles whitened around her crutch. You haven't touched me since this happened. I'm already dead to you. Salandra flinched like the words had struck her. Kale exhaled sharply. No offense, Your Majesty, or whatever, but any law that throws a kid away for missing a leg is garbage. Salandra's eyes narrowed dangerously. You know who I am. Lucky guess. The whole royal bearing, the guards, the eyes, kind of gives it away. Which means, yeah, I'm probably a dead man for talking back. You interfere in royal affairs. Punishable by death. Kale shrugged. Seems like everything's punishable by death with you people. He looked at Nira. But she's been coming here for months, crawling through tunnels just to watch me work. You know why? Because I treat her like a kid who likes machines, not like a ghost. Salandra said nothing, her eyes fixed on her daughter. Kale pressed forward, words spilling before he could stop them. You say she can't be queen because she's imperfect. But maybe you're wrong. Maybe she's not less, maybe she could be more. Give me 1 week. Let me build her something better. A leg that actually works. Salandra's bitter laugh echoed off the walls. Impossible. Our physicians. Think like Zephyrians, Kale cut in. Humans. We've been strapping parts onto ourselves since we figured out how to sharpen sticks. Prosthetics, implants, whatever it takes. I've studied your tech for years. Your bioelectric fields are more conductive than ours. If anything, it might work better. He glanced at Nira, whose silver eyes shimmered with something he hadn't seen in her before, hope. If I fail, Kale said quietly, at least she'll know someone tried. The queen's gaze lingered on him, sharp and searching. At last she turned to her daughter. 1 week. If he fails, you return to the palace. No argument. And if he succeeds? Nira asked, voice trembling but steady. Salandra's tone was iron. Then we will see what the council makes of a mechanical heir. With that, she turned and left, her guards silent shadows at her side. The moment the door closed, Nira crumpled onto the stool, tears fizzing against her glowing blue skin like drops of champagne. Kale handed her a rag and crouched beside her. Hey. None of that, he said gently. We've got work to do. First rule of human engineering, when in doubt, raid everything. By morning, Kale had dragged half his junk pile onto the floor. Metal plates, busted drones, fried circuit boards, everything became raw material. Nira manned the shop door, keeping lookout while he stripped a delivery drone for parts. Its gyroscopic stabilizer would be perfect for balance control. Why was this thing delivering pizza? Nira asked, her small hands already sorting screws by size without being told. Because humans will find a way to deliver pizza anywhere, Kale said, prying out the stabilizer. Mars colony, bottom of the ocean, doesn't matter. If there's people, there's pizza. Nira tilted her head. Greatest human invention. Greatest achievement of our entire species, Kale said with mock solemnity. Pizza in 30 minutes or less. She giggled softly, the sound almost alien in his grease-stained shop. He lined up parts across the bench, gyroscope here, haptic sensors from an old gaming chair there. See this? The stabilizer will keep you balanced on uneven ground. And these sensors will translate pressure into signals your brain can process. Nira's hands paused. Do you think I'm broken? Kale set his tools down. Crouched so he was level with her again. Truth. You're missing a leg. That's different. Broken would be giving up. Broken would be believing those idiots who say you're less. Everything that makes you you is still right here. He tapped her forehead gently. Her smile wobbled. That's a terrible metaphor. Hey, I'm a mechanic, not a poet. The shop door chimed. Salandra stepped inside, this time without guards, carrying a sleek medical case that practically radiated wealth. She looked out of place among Kale's oil stains and metal scraps. You came back, Nira said, surprise lacing her voice. I said I would observe, Salandra replied, setting the case on the bench. These are neural interface patches. Military grade. You might find them useful. Kale whistled low, holding one up to the light. This stuff costs more than my whole shop. Guess being queen has perks. Salandra ignored his tone, studying his sketches. If you harmonize her bioelectric field rather than replicate it, the interface may integrate more cleanly. Kale glanced sideways at her. That's actually smart. Your doctors always tried to force a perfect match, didn't they? Salandra's jaw tightened. They lack imagination. Neera piped up, Mom knows everything about bow fields. She wrote the book on them when she was young. Salandra stiffened, her hands folding tightly. That was a long time ago. Kale raised an eyebrow. What were you, 20? Writing definitive texts already? I was motivated. Her hand brushed her abdomen unconsciously before she caught herself. Kale filed the detail away but didn't press. Instead, he nodded toward the pile of scrap. Then you're perfect for neural mapping duty. We'll need her patterns. For hours, they worked together. Kale shaping metal with sparks flying, Salandra calculating harmonic alignments, Neera fetching tools with steady little hands. It almost felt like family, messy, awkward, but real. At one point, Neera tested a welding torch under Kale's watchful eye. Salandra frowned. Our law forbids her touching tools of creation. Then your law is stupid, Kale said flatly. No offense. You say that often, Salandra replied coolly. Followed by offense. Would you prefer I lie? I would prefer respect. Kale met her gaze, voice firm. Respect is earned. Not inherited. So which do you want? My bow, or a leg that works? The silence between them hummed sharper than the welding torch. Later that day, Neera dissolved into helpless giggles when Kale miscalculated hydraulic pressure and sprayed himself head to toe in black oil. You look like you wrestled a tar pit, she gasped. Salandra's lips twitched. Then, to Kale's astonishment, she laughed, really laughed. The sound transformed her face, softer, alive. Kale grinned through the mess. Glad to see I've got royal approval for slapstick. That night, Neera fell asleep on the shop couch, her small body curled under Kale's jacket. Salandra lingered by her side, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face with trembling fingers. She hasn't slept that peacefully in a year, Salandra whispered. Kids are resilient, Kale murmured, adjusting the prototype knee joint. Give them hope and they'll run with it. Her voice cracked almost imperceptibly. And if this fails? If I gave her hope for nothing? Kale looked at her directly. Then at least she'll know someone tried. Their eyes locked. Something fragile and dangerous passed between them, like sparks in oil. The following days settled into a rhythm. Mornings were chaos, Kale and Neera digging through scrap, evenings quieter, Salandra arriving with supplies, always with excuses. By the third night, she was laughing at Kale's terrible jokes over greasy takeout. By the fourth, she was helping recalibrate sensors while her hand brushed his by accident, neither of them pulling away. Then came the test. The prosthetic gleamed in workshop light, sleek silver alloy with faint blue accents to match Neera's skin. Hours of welding, calibrating, sleepless nights distilled into one creation. Ready? Kale asked. Neera nodded fiercely. Salandra stood close, her hand steady on her daughter's shoulder. Kale activated the neural interface. The leg hummed, field harmonics syncing. Neera gasped. It's fizzy. Like water in my bones. Can you move the toes? Kale asked. The prosthetic flexed. Neera's eyes went wide. I can feel the floor. Not the same, but I can feel it. Good. Now stand. With both Kale and Salandra bracing her, she rose carefully. One step. Another. The prosthetic carried her weight flawlessly. Then, halfway across the shop, her confidence cracked. Her biofield faltered. The harmonics slipped, and the leg seized. She stumbled hard. "I can't." Nira cried, tears brimming. "I'm not whole." Kale caught her before she fell. Hey. Remember what I said. Fail faster. Fall 100 times if you need to. That's how you learn. Salandra crouched beside them. For the first time in a year, she wrapped both arms around her daughter. "You are mine," she whispered fiercely. "Whole or not, you are mine." Nira clung to her mother, her tears fizzing brighter now. When she stood again, determination burned in her eyes. This time, her field held steady. 1 step. 2. 10. By 20, she was nearly bouncing. It works. It really works. She flung herself at both of them, laughter bubbling. Salandra laughed too, holding her tight. Kale's chest ached. He hadn't seen this kind of joy in years. Then Salandra turned to him, silver eyes gleaming. And before either of them could think, she kissed him. It lasted 2 seconds. Long enough to burn into Kale's memory. Long enough for Nira, 6 years old and wise beyond her years, to look between them and ask, "Does this mean he can stay?" Before either adult could answer, the workshop window exploded. Glass rained inward. Smoke filled the shop. Armored figures stormed inside with precision that reeked of military training. Salandra's face hardened. "House Crimson," she hissed, pulling Nira close. Kale grabbed the nearest wrench, useless against energy rifles but better than nothing. Through the haze, a scarred figure removed his helmet, Lord Varric, heir of House Crimson. His cold eyes locked onto the girl's prosthetic. "Interesting," Varric drawled. "A broken child with stolen strength. Surely the council must decide if such modifications are legal." He raised a hand. "Confiscate it." Like hell, Kale snapped, stepping forward. The stunner blast hit him in the chest, hurling him backward into a shelf. Pain tore through him as metal clattered down. Nira screamed his name. Salandra's biofield flared, forcing soldiers back. "Careful, Majesty," Varric sneered. "Violence between houses carries consequences. You wouldn't risk your throne for a mechanic and a broken heir." Kale staggered upright, clutching his ribs, tasting blood. "She's not broken," he growled. Another blast dropped him to his knees. And then something impossible happened. Nira's field erupted, wild and raw, the prosthetic amplifying her power. Tools lifted, metal screamed, soldiers ducked as the room itself seemed to turn against them. Varric's smile faltered. "Impossible." Kale, half-conscious, slammed his hand on the emergency beacon under his bench. Human security forces poured in moments later, weapons raised. Varric's men retreated under snarls and threats, but Kale saw the hatred in the Crimson Lord's eyes. "This isn't over," Varric spat, before vanishing into the smoke. Salandra knelt beside Kale, her hands gentle on his battered ribs. "Too cracked," she muttered. "You're lucky." "Feel real lucky," Kale wheezed. Nira hugged him fiercely. "You protected me." "Of course," Kale whispered, pain lacing his voice. "That's what family does." The word hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. And none of them dared deny it. The days that followed blurred together. Kale worked through cracked ribs and sleepless nights, tightening bolts, rewiring circuits, running diagnostics until his hands shook. Nira trained every waking hour, walking, stumbling, standing again, until the stumbles turned to strides, and the strides into runs. Salandra watched them both with guarded eyes. She arrived each morning in regal silence, but by night she was on the floor beside Kale, sleeves rolled, tightening screws with her bare hands. More and more, the line between queen and mother, between royal and exile, blurred into something rawer, truer. 5 days before the ceremony of inheritance, Kale unveiled the finished prosthetic. Not just functional, beautiful. Alloy polished to gleam, panels designed to match the hue of Nira's skin. At the last second, Kale grabbed a can of paint and scrawled flames up the side, bright orange licking from ankle to knee. Kale. Salandra's voice was sharp. You deface ceremonial attire. Enhance, Kale corrected. Flames add at least 10 horsepower. Scientific fact. Nira beamed at her reflection. It makes me look fast. Salandra pressed her temples with both hands but, after a long pause, let out a weary breath. The flames stay. But if the council disapproves? Blame the human, Nira and Kale said in unison. The day of the ceremony arrived with all the subtlety of a thunderclap. A platform of polished metal descended to ferry them upward, from the grimy lower levels of Verdara Prime through the bustling mid-tiers, into the skies where the nobility lived on floating palaces. The air grew cleaner, colder, thinner the higher they climbed. The great hall awaited at the peak, a monolith carved from a single block of black stone older than spaceflight, its walls humming with history. The crowd was vast, nobles in shimmering robes, banners of rival houses, the whole world watching. Lord Varric stood near the altar, scarred face arranged into false courtesy. Beside him, his daughter Tira, 2 years older than Nira, dressed in flawless ceremonial robes. She looked at Nira's flame-painted leg with undisguised curiosity. I like it, Tira whispered as they passed. The flames are cool. Your robes are prettier, Nira whispered back. They're itchy. Despite the tension, both girls grinned. Then Varric's hand gripped his daughter's shoulder, pulling her back. The high priestess entered, ancient, her skin so dark blue it was almost black, her voice brittle but commanding. She raised her hand. Silence fell. 2 heirs stand before us, she intoned. Tira of House Crimson. Nira of House Vera. Each shall walk the path, each shall lift the crown of inheritance. Tira went first, her movements graceful, perfect. Every step measured, every word of the oath flawless. The crown hovered before her, steady in her controlled telekinesis. The crowd erupted in applause. Varric's smile glowed with triumph. Then it was Nira's turn. Her flame-painted leg clicked against the polished floor, each step a challenge. Murmurs rose as she advanced. Halfway down the path, the leg froze. Locked stiff. Nira tumbled hard, the sound echoing through the chamber. Varric's smile sharpened. Kale's heart thundered. EMP, had to be. Nothing else would fry all 3 redundant systems at once. His eyes swept the crowd and landed on Varric, whose satisfaction betrayed him. Sabotage. Kale roared, stepping into the sacred circle, violating a dozen laws. That was an electromagnetic pulse. Silence, human. Varric snapped. But Kale was already kneeling beside Nira, tools flashing from his pocket. His voice carried across the hall, deliberately loud. You know what your problem is, he demanded, his hands steady even as his ribs screamed. You think perfection means never failing. On Earth, we have another word for things that never fail. We call them dead. The chamber rippled with shocked murmurs. He ripped open the access panel, wires sparking. Life is breaking and rebuilding. Falling and rising. This kid, your princess, crawled through sewage pipes on one leg just to watch me work. She fell every day for months and stood up again. That's not imperfection. That's will. He bypassed fried circuits, his last spare power cell clutched tight. Always keep one more backup than you think you'll need, he muttered, slotting it in. The leg purred back to life, brighter than ever. The flames gleamed under ceremonial lights. The high priestess peered down at Nira. Child. Can you continue? Nira pushed herself up, breath ragged. Then her field flared. Stronger than Kale had ever seen. She walked. 1 step, 2, 10. By the time she reached the crown, the hall was silent, stunned. She did not lift it immediately. She turned to the assembly, voice ringing clear. I am imperfect. I always will be. This leg is metal and circuits, and flames my dad painted, even though my mom said not to. Nervous chuckles fluttered. But I'm stronger for it. I've learned things you never learn if you never fall. I've been rebuilt by love, not law. Her bowfield blazed. The crown rose, along with every scrap of metal in the chamber. Armor lifted off guards, banners snapped from their poles, even Varric's medallion strangled him until he tore it free. If you want perfection, choose her, Nira said, nodding at Tira. She's never failed because she's never had to. But if you want someone who knows that strength comes from rebuilding, then choose me. She spoke the oath of protection. Each word deliberate, each syllable steady as the crown floated above her. When she finished, she didn't just lower it, she dropped everything at once. The crash reverberated like thunder. The high priestess raised both hands. The child has shown power unseen in generations. Perhaps we misunderstood the law. Perhaps perfection is not of body, but of spirit. Varric lunged forward. Outrageous. Tradition. Tradition does not excuse treason, the high priestess snapped. Our scanners record EMP discharge from your position. You sabotaged sacred trial. Guards moved at once, seizing him. As Varric was dragged away, Tira slipped free of her mother's grasp. She ran to Nira, eyes wide. That was amazing. Can you teach me to do that? The metal thing, not the losing a leg part. Nira laughed, suddenly shy. Maybe, if you teach me how to walk like you. The chamber erupted, nobles arguing, cheering, condemning. But none of it mattered. The tide had turned. Later, back in the shop, Kale was sketching rocket boots on a scrap of metal when Salandra sat on his workbench. You could have a palace workshop, she said. Assistants, technology, resources beyond measure. Pass, Kale replied. I like my oil stains. Gives the place character. She tilted her head. Then I'll just have to visit often. For maintenance. Just for that? He asked with a grin. Maybe, she whispered, leaning close. The door burst open. Nira, still in ceremonial robes smudged with grease, beamed at them both. Does this mean I can call him Dad now? Kale dropped to one knee. You could have called me that months ago, kiddo. She threw herself at him, pulling Salandra into the hug. For the first time, the three of them fit together, messy, imperfect, but whole. About those rocket boots, Nira said, eyes shining. Tomorrow, Salandra said firmly. Kale grinned. I'm with the kid. Rockets make everything better. Salandra rolled her eyes but laughed, the sound lighter than Kale had ever heard. And in that cluttered little shop, with grease stains and laughter, a new family was born. So that's the story, Kale the mechanic, Nira the not-so-broken heir with her flame-painted leg, and Salandra the queen who had to relearn what it meant to be a mother. Together they proved that strength isn't found in never falling, it's in getting back up every single time. This tale might sound like science fiction, but the heart of it is real. Every one of us carries imperfections, scars, or stories we'd rather hide. Yet those very flaws can become our fire. The thing that makes us resilient, inventive, and unstoppable. Nira stood before her entire people, flames painted down her prosthetic, and showed them that imperfection wasn't a curse, it was her crown. And maybe that's the message worth carrying out of this shop, into our own lives. Whatever's missing, whatever's broken, it doesn't define the end of your story. You get to rebuild. You get to write the next chapter. If you enjoyed this journey, if Kale's stubbornness, Salandra's laughter, and Nira's determination sparks something in you, then don't let it end here. Tap that subscribe button so you don't miss the next adventure. Smash the like button to let me know you want more stories like this. And share this video with someone who could use a reminder, broken doesn't mean finished. Because just like rocket boots on a flame-painted leg, sometimes the craziest ideas turn out to be the ones that fly.